They told you America had air supremacy over Iran. Two former commanders of United States Central Command said it publicly. The Secretary of Defense said it on camera. And for weeks, the evidence seemed to support it. B-52s flying freely. 10 Warthogs hunting Iranian boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Apache helicopters operating at will across the southern flank. And then, April 3rd happened. A US Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle, not a slow 1970s attack aircraft, not a helicopter, one of America's most advanced multi-role combat jets, was shot down over Iranian territory by air defenses that were supposed to be effectively gone. One crew member recovered. One weapon systems officer still missing. Two Black Hawk rescue helicopters hit by Iranian ground fire. An A-10 sent to support the rescue hit and crashed near the Strait of Hormuz. And then the helicopter carrying the already recovered pilot was struck by small arms fire on the way out. 4 aircraft, 1 engagement, 1 American still missing inside Iran, and a 48-hour deadline expiring tomorrow that nobody in Washington has a clean answer for. I am going to walk you through exactly what happened, what it actually means, and why the full picture is more consequential than anything in your headline feed today. Because this is not just a story about a downed jet. It is about what happens when 80% air defense destruction turns out to mean something very different than 100%. Stay with me. Most coverage is treating April 3rd as a standalone event. It is not. It is the latest point in a pattern building since the first hours of this war. Here is what the full timeline looks like when you put it together in one place. March 1st. 3 US F-15Es shot down near Kuwait, not by Iran, by a Kuwaiti F/A-18 in a friendly fire incident. All 6 crew recovered. The Pentagon did not lead with this. March 12th. A US KC-135 refueling aircraft crashes in western Iraq during combat operations. 6 American airmen killed. Operational loss, 6 Americans dead. March 19th. A US F-35, America's most advanced stealth fighter, hit by enemy fire over Iran, makes an emergency landing at a regional base. Iran claims the kill. The Pentagon never confirms it. April 3rd. An F-15E shot down over southern Iran. First confirmed enemy shoot-down of a manned US aircraft in this operation. 1 crew member missing. Rescue operation loses additional aircraft. 6 aircraft lost or damaged in 5 weeks. 13 Americans killed. 365 wounded. The narrative of frictionless air dominance has never been the complete picture. April 3rd is where that incomplete picture became impossible to maintain. Here is the question nobody is answering clearly enough. If 80% of Iran's air defenses were destroyed in the first 24 hours, and 2 former Central Command commanders have publicly used the word air supremacy, what exactly brought down an F-15E on April 3rd? The IRGC confirmed it used a new advanced air defense system. New. That word is doing enormous work. The 80% destruction figure was calculated against known systems. Systems tracked by Western satellites for years. Positions, capabilities, and vulnerabilities mapped across decades of intelligence collection. The entire opening campaign was executed against a target set, studied, modeled, and rehearsed before the first bomb fell. A new system is by definition outside that target set. It was not in the pre-war intelligence picture. It was not modeled. It was not rehearsed against. And on April 3rd, it reached up and pulled an F-15E out of the sky. The IRGC then publicly announced it will unveil additional new systems on the battlefield going forward. That is not a bluff. It is a warning that the threat picture is still evolving. and every American aircraft flying over Iran right now is operating in an environment where the full threat profile is no longer fully mapped. Scattered and degraded is not zero. April 3rd is the proof. What happened after the shoot-down tells you as much about this war as the shoot-down itself. Videos on verified social media show a US Air Force HC-13O conducting aerial refueling of HH-60G Pave Hawk helicopters over Iranian territory. The United States ran a live aerial refueling operation inside hostile airspace during an active combat rescue mission. That detail has received almost no coverage. 2 Black Hawks involved in the rescue were struck by Iranian ground fire. Both escaped. Then an A-10, providing close air support, was hit and crashed near the Strait of Hormuz. Its pilot ejected and was recovered. Then the helicopter extracting the already rescued F-15E pilot was struck by small arms fire from what Iran attributed to its tribal networks. It landed safely, but it was hit. 4 aircraft struck in a single rescue sequence, and 1 weapons systems officer still missing. Iran's response was immediate. The regional governor publicly offered commendations for anyone capturing or killing the crew. Local Swordsons merchants put up the equivalent of $66,000 for the missing airman brought in alive. Iranian state television told civilians to shoot on sight. The IRGC sealed off a massive search area in southwestern Iran. This is not just a military operation. This is Iran racing to acquire the most valuable bargaining chip available before Trump's deadline expires. A captured American prisoner of war on Iranian state television on the day Trump threatens to bomb power plants is not a complication. It is a strategic trap, and Iran is running as fast as it can to set it. The 48-hour problem, 7 o'clock. Trump's deadline expires April 6th. The third deadline he has issued. The previous 2 passed without the threatened escalation materializing. Here is what that pattern has done. Iran's parliament speaker described the war publicly as having been downgraded from regime change to direct quote, "Hey, can anyone find our pilots, please?" That is not the language of a government that believes the deadline is real, and Iran has reason for that confidence. The strait remains largely closed. 290 ships trapped in the Gulf. Oil above $100 a barrel. US gas prices at $4.10 per gallon. India purchasing oil directly from Iran for the first time in 7 years just to keep its economy running. 5 EU nations pushing windfall taxes on energy companies profiting from the crisis. Meanwhile, the United States has fired at least 850 Tomahawk cruise missiles in 5 weeks. Defense analysts are now publicly asking whether stockpiles are running low. You cannot credibly threaten to dramatically escalate strikes on hardened Iranian infrastructure if the inventory of weapons needed to do it is already under strain. Iran's blockade is not failing. It is winning the economic war even while losing the air war. And striking Iranian power plants on April 6th does not reopen the strait. It widens a war that already has 1 American missing inside it, a depleting cruise missile stockpile, and a global economy absorbing damage that compounds every single day the waterway stays closed. The deadline expires tomorrow. Iran's answer is publicly, defiantly on the record. No. What is assembling in theatre? 8:30. And here is the part of this story that is not being reported broadly enough. The United States has been formally briefed on a ground operation plan. The objective: securing or removing Iran's stockpile of approximately 970 pounds of uranium enriched to 60% purity, stored in tunnels more than 300 feet underground near Isfahan. The plan requires heavy excavation equipment flown into Iranian territory. a temporary runway constructed inside Iran capable of handling large cargo aircraft, weeks, possibly months of operation, and American boots on the ground inside Iran. Trump has been briefed. The question is whether he gives the order, and the pieces are already visibly assembling. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit has arrived in theatre. The 11th is en route. A second carrier strike group has departed the US East Coast. 2 EA-37B Compass Call electronic warfare aircraft, offensive systems designed to blind enemy radar, communications, and navigation, have moved into the Central Command Theatre. You do not move 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, a second carrier, and specialized offensive electronic warfare aircraft toward a theatre because you are planning to de-escalate. The architecture assembling in that region right now is telling a story the press conferences have not caught up to yet. Where this ends? 10 o'clock. 2 paths exist from here. Iran opens the strait. The regime concludes the cost of continued bombardment exceeds the cost of capitulation. The missing airman becomes the central negotiating variable. That path carries enormous uncertainty but keeps American ground forces out of Iran. Iran refuses. The deadline passes, or the strikes come. The ground operation moves from briefed to ordered, and American boots on Iranian soil carry implications that extend to global oil markets, NATO relationships, and the calculations Beijing and Moscow are making right now about American will and American capacity. This was never a story about aircraft. It is a story about what happens when air supremacy still cannot resolve the fundamental strategic problem it was sent to solve. About the gap between destroying an enemy's military capacity and forcing its political capitulation. About what it costs when those two things refuse to align. The deadline expires tomorrow. The missing airman is still out there. The Marine units are arriving. The carriers are moving. The ground operation plan is on the President's desk, and a decision that may already have been made in a room none of us have access to is about to become visible. Does Iran open the strait before April 6th? Does Trump strike with an American still missing inside Iran? Or does something happen that nobody is predicting yet? Leave your